There will come a time in your life when the mirror can no longer lie to you. A moment when you no longer rush to your reflection seeking approval, validation, or some borrowed beauty reflected back from the gaze of someone else. A moment when the echo of all your chasing will meet the silence of your soul, and in that silence you'll remember you've been seeking in the wrong direction all along. You weren't meant to beg for love. You were born to be it. Love, in its truest form, has never been something to earn or plead for. It is not something that gets traded, bartered, or handed out by someone else like a reward. It is not measured by attention or withheld like punishment. Love is not a performance. It is not a negotiation. It is your origin. It is your essence. It is what you are, beneath the noise, beyond the past, before the wounds were even named. You are not missing love. You are missing the awareness that it has always been within you. Every time you search for it in someone else's approval, you abandon the infinite source already pulsing quietly in your own heart. Every time you begged for someone to stay, you forgot that no one leaves you but your own belief, that you needed them to complete you. No one can abandon you except the version of yourself that was never truly you. We live in a world obsessed with finding the one. But what if the one you were meant to find was yourself? Not the version shaped by society, not the identity patched together from rejection, comparison, and shame, but the soul underneath the timeless being who came into this life whole, radiant, and completely free. The real tragedy is not that others fail to love us. The real tragedy is when we fail to remember that we never needed them to. Your soul did not incarnate to earn love. Your soul came to express it. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to awaken to the truth that you were never unchosen in the first place. There is nothing to prove, nothing to strive for. You don't need to impress, seduce, or convince anyone of your worth, because your worth is not a question. It is the answer. It is the constant. It is the silent light that has never left you. So why do we beg? Why do we lower our voice, dim our light, twist ourselves into shapes just to be accepted? It is because somewhere along the way we were taught to believe that love is conditional, that it is scarce, that it must be earned by pleasing, performing, or pretending. And in doing so, we abandoned our own power. We handed our divine worth over to the fickle opinions of the world, forgetting that no one can truly love you until you love yourself enough to stop seeking their permission to exist. To beg for love is to forget who you are. It is to kneel before illusions and ask them to define you. It is to place your sacred identity into the hands of someone else's broken perception. And let me be clear, no matter how loving someone else may be, they cannot give you what you've denied yourself. Even the purest love cannot fill a soul that has become a stranger to itself. You cannot drink from someone else's cup and expect it to quench the thirst of your own inner emptiness. That thirst must be met at the well of your own soul. Healing begins the moment you stop outsourcing your self-worth. The moment you stop performing for love like a child on a stage and instead sit quietly with yourself and ask, what am I still trying to earn that was already mine when I arrived? What am I still chasing that I've never actually lost? Who taught me that love had to come from out there? You see, every time you choose yourself truly, wholly, unapologetically, you are no longer asking others to do what you are now doing for yourself. And when that happens, something powerful is set in motion. The love you give yourself becomes a frequency, a signal, a divine mirror. And everything in the universe begins to reflect that vibration back to you, not because you demanded it, but because you aligned with it. You stopped begging, you started being. Being love is very different than seeking love. When you are being love, you are no longer trying to extract it from others. You are radiating it from your center. You are becoming the source. And the irony of this shift is that the very love you once chased begins to find you naturally, effortlessly, not because you finally became enough, but because you finally stopped trying to prove that you weren't. There are no conditions to divine love. It doesn't ask for credentials. It doesn't check your history. It doesn't care about the mistakes you've made or the scars you carry. In fact, it whispers, come exactly as you are. You've always been enough. And if that voice has grown faint in your life, it's not because it left, it's because you stopped listening. You started tuning in to the loud noise of the world instead of the quiet truth of the soul. But that voice, that sacred whisper of wholeness, it's still there, beneath the pain, beneath the story, beneath the masks and roles and desperate attempts to be loved. It's waiting for you to return to yourself, to stop performing and start remembering, to stop begging and start becoming, to stop chasing and finally rest in the love that never left. Let this be the moment you return to your own heart. Not as a concept, not as an affirmation, but as a lived experience. Let this be the breath where you stop negotiating your worth and start honoring your divinity. You are not the broken pieces someone walked away from. You are not the rejection that stung or the silence that haunted you. You are the soul who survived, the one who still believes even after everything in love. And that belief, it's not naive, it's sacred. It means you haven't given up on the truth. It means you are still connected to your source, no matter how distant you felt. So do not mourn the love that didn't stay. Celebrate the wisdom it left behind. Do not mourn the ones who couldn't see you. Honor the clarity they gave you. Every closed door was a redirection. Every unanswered call was an invitation to call yourself home. And perhaps the most tender truth of all is this: you don't need to be healed before you are worthy of love. You don't need to be finished to be held. You don't need to be perfect to be embraced. You simply need to be present with yourself, to stop abandoning yourself emotionally every time discomfort rises, to sit beside your own wounds and not treat them like problems to be fixed, but like stories waiting to be understood. That is how you begin to give yourself the love you've been begging others to give you. Not with force, not with performance, but with presence. Presence is the medicine the soul has been craving. Not attention, not validation, not another text from someone whose love is a currency of confusion. What you're yearning for is to feel at home inside your own being, to walk into the rooms of your heart and not feel like a trespasser, to no longer flinch from your own gaze. When you choose to become emotionally present with yourself, when you say, I see you, I hear you, I won't leave you, that is when the begging ends. Because you are no longer empty, you are finally home. And when you are home within, the world stops feeling like a battlefield. People stop being enemies or saviors. They just become mirrors. And you begin to recognize that the ones who withheld their love were simply reflecting the love you had not yet fully claimed for yourself. They weren't the source of your pain. They were the spotlight on your hidden beliefs. The real ache was never their rejection. It was your own silent agreement that you deserved it. You do not deserve crumbs. You do not deserve to be almost loved, nearly chosen, conditionally embraced. The love you give yourself must be a feast, not a ration. It must be unconditional, not because you've never faltered, but because your soul has never ceased to be whole. The ego is the one that counts flaws and keeps score. But your soul, it only knows how to love without hesitation. It only knows how to pour, not barter. And when you align with that part of yourself, you stop participating in relationships that require you to shrink in order to stay. To give yourself love is to reclaim your spiritual authorship. It is to take the pen back from the hands of fear and begin rewriting the script you've been performing. A script that said you had to earn your place. That said you were lovable only when quiet, only when pretty, only when small, only when useful. But the soul doesn't work that way. The soul says, you are loved when you are messy. You are loved when you're lost. You are loved when you forget. You are loved, period. And that period is everything. It is the end of the search. It is the exhale after years of holding your breath. It is the stillness that returns when the storm of self-rejection finally passes. Because all the chasing, all the pleasing, all the pretending, it was never love. It was survival. It was the desperate strategy of a soul that forgot it was already whole. But once you remember, once you taste the peace of no longer needing to be anyone but who you are, you will wonder why you ever searched anywhere else. There is no healing more powerful than becoming your own safe place. No relationship more sacred than the one you nurture with yourself. Not out of ego, but out of devotion. Not out of isolation, but out of integration. When you hold space for yourself, the world holds space for you. When you stop abandoning your own needs, you stop tolerating the emotional starvation that once felt normal. And what once felt like love, the highs, the lows, the confusion will no longer move you. Because truth is quiet, love is calm, and you will have become both. And it is from this state of inner union that you begin to attract a new kind of relationship, not based on dependency, not fueled by fear, not designed to fill your emptiness, but one that mirrors the wholeness you've cultivated. One that doesn't complete you, but complements you. One that doesn't distract from your healing, but dances with it. And until you've met yourself in that way, every connection will be a test of your worth rather than a celebration of your being. So when you find yourself begging, stop, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what am I trying to get that I am not giving? What story have I resurrected that says I must chase to be cherished? And in that moment, forgive yourself. Forgive the years you spent knocking on closed doors. Forgive the times you whispered, please love me, to people who didn't even know how to love themselves. Forgive the inner child who didn't know better. She was only doing what she thought was required to survive. But now you know better. And with knowing comes freedom. With freedom comes responsibility. The responsibility to choose yourself, not in defiance of others, but in remembrance of your truth. You are not here to be rescued. You are here to be revealed. You are not incomplete. You are in the process of unbecoming everything that taught you otherwise. The journey was never about finding love. It was about remembering that you are it. There is a softness that returns when you stop begging, a peace that rises when you let go of the need to be needed. It doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you love them from fullness, not from hunger, from overflow, not from lack. You become the tree that no longer chases the rain because you've discovered the river within. You stop waiting for someone else to come and water your roots. You begin to bloom from the inside out. And this inner bloom cannot be undone by rejection. It does not wither when others walk away. Because it is not fed by attention. It is not sustained by performance. It is nourished by presence, self-compassion, and divine truth. This kind of love is immune to drama, immune to manipulation, immune to the games that once held you captive. Because once you have met yourself in your own heart, no counterfeit connection can satisfy you again. Let the ache remind you, not of what you've lost, but of what you are ready to claim. Let the loneliness guide you, not to desperation, but to deeper intimacy with yourself. Every longing is a messenger. Every trigger, a teacher. Every disappointment, an initiation. They are not signs that love has left you. They are signs that your soul is calling you back. Back to the place where love is not earned, but embodied. Keep breathing with this rhythm of remembrance. Let each breath be a prayer. I am worthy. I am whole. I am already love. Let that be the mantra that rewrites your story. Not because you're trying to convince yourself, but because deep down you already know. You've always known. It's just that now you're ready to live it. And now As you settle into this sacred remembrance, something profound begins to shift inside you, not loud, not sudden, but as gentle as a sunrise washing away the long night. You begin to see that every unmet expectation, every heartbreak, every silence that once screamed abandonment was never about them. It was always the universe whispering, "Return to yourself. They cannot give you what you are still withholding from your own heart." And in that holy returning, you start to listen differently. You begin to hear the sound of your soul, not the noise of your fears, not the echoes of your childhood pain, but the quiet, unshakable voice of your eternal self. The voice that doesn't yell, but guides. The voice that says, you don't need to chase them, you need to find you. You don't need more attention, you need more alignment. And when you begin to trust that voice more than the fear, more than the history, more than the wounds, you stop clinging to what was never meant to stay. You see, love is not something to hoard. It's something to become. And becoming it means you have to surrender your addiction to being chosen. It means you have to lay down your fear that being alone means being unworthy. Solitude is not emptiness. It's sacred space. It's the inner temple where your truest self finally speaks uninterrupted. And in that space, there is no desperation, only devotion. No groveling, only grace. You begin to notice that your peace no longer flinches in someone else's absence. That your joy no longer rises and falls with how much affection they offer. You become unshakable, not because you've hardened, but because you've healed. You've rooted yourself in truth so deep that the winds of rejection no longer uproot your spirit. You walk away from what doesn't align, not in anger, but in reverence. Because now you love yourself too much to remain where your soul is shrinking. And this is when the universe begins to meet you differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. You raised your vibration from, "Please choose me," to, "I choose me." From, "I hope I'm enough for them," to, "I am enough." And they are either aligned or not. And the irony is, the more you no longer need to be loved in a certain way, the more love flows to you in the purest ways. Not because you demanded it, but because you've become it. This is the divine law of frequency. You attract what you embody. When you vibrate from fullness, you repel what drains you and magnetize what uplifts you. And love, real love, cannot resist a soul who no longer begs. Because begging is the energy of separation. It says, "You are my source." But love, real, divine, conscious love, is found in the energy of union. It says, "I am my source, and in that I can meet you as a whole being." You no longer need to be rescued. You are the rescue. You no longer need to be validated. You are the validation. You no longer need to be seen by another in order to see yourself. This is freedom. This is emotional sovereignty. This is what happens when you stop looking outward and begin living inward. When you stop chasing illusions and start anchoring in your own sacred truth. And in this truth, you will walk into rooms differently. You'll speak without shrinking. You'll love without losing yourself. You'll hold space for others without abandoning your own. You will no longer confuse intensity with intimacy. You will no longer interpret mixed signals as a challenge to be deciphered. You will simply recognize misalignment and walk away, not from ego, but from clarity. You will no longer fear being alone. Because now you understand, being alone with your soul is the most holy company you'll ever keep. The silence is not a void, it's a doorway. A portal back to your presence, and in that presence, miracles begin to unfold. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you are no longer living from a fractured place. You are living from essence. Let your life become an offering, not to win love, but to express it. Let your joy be unconditional. Let your boundaries be sacred. Let your standards be written in light, not in desperation. You are not hard to love. You are hard to manipulate. You are not intimidating. You are simply no longer abandoning yourself for the sake of being chosen. And that is what makes your energy unshakable, not because you are guarded, but because you are finally grounded. And when the past comes knocking, and it will, you don't need to answer with fear. You can open the door with grace and say, I no longer live there. When the old patterns whisper, you are too much, too difficult, too this or that, you'll respond, I am exactly as I am meant to be, and I am not for shrinking anymore. You'll begin to carry yourself like someone who knows the divine lives within them, because it does. Then let us now complete the journey, not by ending it, but by coming home to where it always began, within you. There is a kind of peace that doesn't arrive like lightning, but like the soft return of your own breath. It doesn't scream or demand applause. It simply settles in deep, sacred, and certain. That peace is what happens when you stop trying to earn your place on this earth. When you stop performing for love that was never meant to be bartered in the first place. When you stop trying to become lovable and realize you already are. You are not a project. You are not an open wound to be endlessly patched up by others. You are not a mistake waiting to be corrected by someone else's approval. You are a living miracle, the breath of God made visible in human form. And the moment you reclaim that truth, the moment you stand in it, not as a concept, but as an embodied reality, you stop begging for love because you finally remember that love was never outside of you. Let this moment be a resurrection. Let it be the moment your old story dies, the story that said you had to chase, perform, or be chosen to matter. Let it be the moment you stop searching for someone else to see your light and instead become the one who holds it with reverence. You no longer need to plead for recognition. You simply need to recognize yourself. You are not here to be filled. You are here to overflow. You are not here to be defined by someone's affection. You are here to radiate your own. You are not here to shrink in the presence of others. You are here to expand in the presence of truth. And truth is this: you were never broken. You were becoming. You were never too much. You were overflowing. You were never hard to love. You were waiting to love yourself first. You have not failed because someone walked away. You have awakened. You have remembered. And in this remembrance, you no longer settle for scraps. You no longer distort yourself to fit the mold of another's limited vision. You become the vessel of love that pours without needing to be refilled by others. Because you have tapped into the infinite well within the source, the silence, the sacred center of your being. And yes, love may still arrive from others. In fact, it will. But it will not arrive because you begged for it. It will arrive because you no longer did, because you aligned, because you embodied, because you finally surrendered the need to be completed, and in doing so, became whole. This is the power of spiritual self-love. It does not isolate you. It connects you to everything. It does not harden you. It frees you. It does not make you superior. It makes you true. When you walk in this kind of love, you become an invitation not for people to fix you, but to meet you as they are. You stop searching for the one and start becoming the one for yourself. And in doing so, you become a mirror for others to remember themselves too. That is the ripple of self-love. It is not selfish. It is sacred. It is not indulgent. It is awakening. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. And the world begins to respond not to your words, but to your frequency. That frequency says, I am enough. I am whole. I am no longer available for anything less than truth. And the truth is, you no longer chase what you are, you embody it. You no longer explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer try to resurrect connections that were assignments, not destinies. You no longer suffer for the sake of keeping others comfortable. You rise, you rest, you remember. And as you remember, let this be your prayer, not a plea, but a proclamation. I release the story that I must earn love. I release the lie that I am only worthy when needed. I release the identity that was shaped by rejection. I return to my soul. I return to my truth. I return to the knowing that I am love itself. From this day forward, may you walk not in search of love, but in the radiance of it. May you no longer settle for connections that cost you your peace. May you become the sanctuary you once searched for. And may you always remember, the love you were begging for was never in their hands. It was always in yours. And so it is. And so you are. My dear, wonderful friends, tonight I shall share with you the most powerful secret in all of creation. How to speak to yourself in a way that will completely transform your world in just 3 days. Not in 3 months, not in 3 years, but in 3 days. For you see, the power of your inner conversation is absolute, and it is the only true creative power in the universe. Now, when I tell you to talk to yourself, I am not speaking of the idle chatter that most engage in throughout their day. I speak of that inner conversation that is deliberate, conscious, and aligned with your desired state. For your inner conversation is your consciousness externalized, and your consciousness is God. Consider the words of Scripture. In the beginning was the Word. These words are not speaking of some external deity's utterance. They speak of your inner word, your inner conversation. For you are the operant power, and your inner conversation is the word that creates all things. Many of you come to me asking, Wayne, how long must I wait to see my desires manifest? And I tell you now, give yourself 3 days of proper inner conversation, and you will see your world begin to transform. For 3 is the number of completion in Scripture. And when you maintain the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you set in motion forces beyond your current understanding. Let me share with you exactly how to conduct this inner conversation. First, you must understand that your inner conversation must be from the end. You do not speak of what you want to be true. You speak as though what you desire is already true. This is the great secret that most of the world has missed. When you wake in the morning of your first day, your inner conversation must be from the state of your wish fulfilled. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation must be that of a wealthy person. If you desire health, your inner conversation must be that of a healthy person. If you desire love, your inner conversation must be that of someone who is deeply loved. But then this is crucial. Your inner conversation must feel natural. It must not be strained or forced, for feeling is the secret. And your inner conversation must be accompanied by the feeling of naturalness. Let me give you a perfect example from Scripture. When David spoke to Goliath, his inner conversation was not, I hope I can win or I will try my best. His inner conversation was from the state of victory already achieved. This is why he could say with complete conviction, this day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand. Now, for these 3 days, you must guard your inner conversation as though your life depends upon it, because it does. Every time you catch yourself engaging in inner conversation that contradicts your desired state, you must immediately revise it. This is not a suggestion. This is a command if you wish to see your world transform. Consider this. Every outer conversation you have is first an inner conversation. Every relationship you have is first an inner conversation. Every circumstance in your life is first an inner conversation. Therefore, by changing your inner conversation for just 3 days, you literally change the entire substance from which your world is created. Let me tell you how to structure your inner conversation throughout these 3 days. In the morning, your first inner words must be from the state of your wish fulfilled before you open your eyes, before you move a muscle. engage in the inner conversation of the person you wish to be. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation might be, I am so grateful for my abundant life. Money flows to me easily and continuously. I am surrounded by prosperity. But remember, these words must not be mere affirmations. They must be spoken with the feeling of knowing that they are already true. Throughout your day, your inner conversation must maintain the same level of conviction. When challenges arise, and they will arise, your inner conversation must remain steadfast. If someone speaks of lack, your inner conversation must be of abundance. If someone speaks of illness, your inner conversation must be of health. This is where most fail in their attempt to change their world. They allow their inner conversation to be pulled into the current circumstances rather than maintaining the conversation of their desired state. But I tell you now, circumstances have no power over your inner conversation unless you give them that power. For these 3 days, you must be relentless in maintaining your new inner conversation. When you walk down the street, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. When you eat your meals, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. When you prepare for sleep, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. Let me share with you a principle that I have tested and proven countless times. Your inner conversation is the only reality. Everything else, absolutely everything, is a shadow of your inner conversation pushed out. Therefore, when you maintain the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you literally create a new world. Many of you may be thinking, but Wayne, 3 days seems too short a time to change my entire world. Let me remind you of the story of Jonah. How long was he in the belly of the whale? 3 days. And after 3 days, he was transformed, and his world was transformed. This is not coincidence, my dear friends. This is law. 3 days of proper inner conversation is all that is required to set in motion the forces that will transform your world. But these must be 3 complete days, not 3 days of wavering between states. During these 3 days, you must guard your inner conversation, not just in your waking hours, but as you fall asleep. For the last inner conversation you have before sleep is particularly powerful. It continues to echo through your subconscious mind throughout your sleep. Therefore, as you prepare for sleep during these 3 days, your inner conversation must be perfectly aligned with your desired state. If you desire a successful business, your inner conversation might be, I am so grateful for my thriving business. My customers are delighted with our services. Profits increase continuously. But remember, and this is crucial, your inner conversation must be accompanied by the feeling of naturalness. It must feel as natural to have this conversation as it feels to speak of what you had for breakfast. This is where the power lies, not in the words themselves, but in the feeling of naturalness that accompanies them. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your outer conversations. Therefore, during these 3 days, you must be particularly vigilant about your outer conversations as well. They must align with your new inner conversation. If someone asks you how you are, your response must come from your desired state. If someone speaks to you about problems or difficulties, your response must come from your desired state. Your outer conversation must be a perfect reflection of your new inner conversation. Many of you may find this challenging at first. You may be tempted to engage in conversations about current circumstances rather than your desired state. But I tell you now, this is where your power lies in maintaining your new conversation, regardless of appearances. Consider the story of Jesus walking on water. What was his inner conversation? Was it about the impossibility of walking on water? Was it about the danger of the storms? No, his inner conversation was from the state of mastery over all natural laws, and his outer world had to conform to this inner conversation. During these 3 days, you must maintain the same level of conviction in your inner conversation. You must speak to yourself as though your desired state is already your reality, not as though it will be, not as though it might be, but as though it is. Let me share with you how to handle doubts when they arise during these 3 days, and they will arise. When a doubt appears in your mind, do not fight it. Instead, immediately revise your inner conversation. If you catch yourself saying inwardly, "This isn't working," immediately revise it too. "Everything is working perfectly. My world is transforming now." This revision must be immediate and complete. You cannot allow doubt to linger in your inner conversation. For remember, your inner conversation is the only reality. Therefore, a doubting inner conversation will create a doubting outer reality. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be dominated by gratitude. Not gratitude for what you hope will come, but gratitude for what is already yours in your desired state. This gratitude must be part of your inner conversation throughout the day. When you wake in the morning, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. When you go about your daily activities, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. When you prepare for sleep, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your inner states, and your inner states create your outer world. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of your wish fulfilled. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of wealth. Consciousness. If you desire health, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of health. Consciousness. If you desire love, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of being loved. Many of you may be wondering what to do if you slip in your inner conversation during these 3 days. Let me be very clear. You must not condemn yourself. Instead, immediately revise the conversation. Remember, you are training yourself to maintain a new inner conversation. And like any training, it requires practice. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your primary focus. Every other activity must be secondary to maintaining your new inner conversation. For you are literally recreating your world through this conversation. Let me share with you how to structure your inner conversation for specific desires. If you desire a new home, your inner conversation might be, "I love living in my beautiful new home. Everything about it is perfect for me." If you desire a promotion, your inner conversation might be, "I am so grateful for my new position. It's everything I desired and more." But remember, these are not mere words. They must be accompanied by the feeling of living in that new home, the feeling of working in that new position. Fulfilling is the secret, and your inner conversation must generate the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be specific. Vague inner conversation creates vague results. Therefore, speak to yourself with clarity about your desired state. Be specific in your inner conversation about what you are grateful for, what you are experiencing, what you are enjoying in your desired state. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates self-concept, and your self-concept creates your world. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about who you are, not just what you have. If you desire success, your inner conversation must be about being a successful person, not just about having success. If you desire abundance, your inner conversation must be about being an abundant person, not just about having money. If you desire love, your inner conversation must be about being a loved person, not just about having a relationship. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be continuous, not in the sense of constant chatter, but in the sense of consistent alignment with your desired state. Every time you become aware of your inner conversation, it must be from your desired state. Let me share with you how to maintain this continuity. Set reminders for yourself throughout the day. Every time you look at your watch, every time you eat a meal, every time you enter a room. Let these be triggers to check your inner conversation. But remember, your inner conversation must not be mechanical. It must be aligned with feeling rich with the emotion of your desired state. For it is the feeling that gives power to your inner conversation. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be sovereign. You must not allow anyone or anything to dictate your inner conversation. Not circumstances, not other people's opinions, not past experiences. Nothing must have power over your inner conversation except you. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your expectations, and your expectations create your experience. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must create the highest expectations of good for yourself. Many of you may be thinking, but Wayne, what if my desired state seems impossible? Let me remind you, nothing is impossible. To your inner conversation. Your inner conversation is God in action, and to God all things are possible. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about possibility, not probability. You must speak to yourself from the state of your wish fulfilled, regardless of how probable or improbable may seem to your rational mind. Let me share with you how to handle apparent failures during these 3 days. If something happens that seems to contradict your desired state, your inner conversation must remain unchanged. You must speak to yourself as though the seeming failure is actually part of the perfect unfolding of your desire. Remember, your inner conversation is creating your reality, not the other way around. Therefore, no external circumstance has the power to change your inner conversation unless you give it that power. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your constant companion. It must be the lens through which you view every experience, the filter through which you interpret every event, the standard by which you measure every circumstance. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates a belief system, and your belief system creates your reality. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must consistently reinforce the beliefs that support your desired state. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be a perfect reflection of the person you wish to be. You must speak to yourself as that person would speak. Think as that person would think. Feel as that person would feel. Let me share with you how to maintain this level of consciousness. When you catch yourself speaking from your old state, immediately ask yourself, how would I be speaking to myself if I were already the person I wish to be? Then revise your inner conversation accordingly. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about what is not, what was, or what might be. You must speak to yourself in the present tense from the state of your wish fulfilled. This is crucial for the manifestation of your desire. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates future, but it does so by creating your present. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must make your desired future your present reality. Many of you may be wondering what will happen after these 3 days. Let me tell you, if you have maintained the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you will have set in motion forces that must result in the manifestation of your desire. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your primary tool for creation. Every other method, every other technique, every other approach must be secondary to maintaining your new inner conversation. Let me share with you how to know if your inner conversation is correct. If it feels natural, if it feels real, if it feels true, even in the face of contrary evidence, then your inner conversation is correct. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be protected like a precious jewel. You must guard it against doubt, against fear, against negativity. For your inner conversation is the very substance from which your world is created. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates a relationship with yourself. and your relationship with yourself. Creates all other relationships. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must reflect the highest, most loving relationship with yourself. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your sacred practice. You must treat it with the same reverence that a priest treats his prayers, that a scientist treats his experiments, that an artist treats his creations. Let me share with you how to maintain this level of devotion. See your inner conversation as your direct connection to the creative power of the universe. For that is exactly what it is, your consciousness in action creating your world. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your constant reminder of who you really are, the operant power in your world, the creator of reality, the God of your uniqueness. And that, my dear friends, is how you must talk to yourself for 3 days if you wish to transform your world. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but consistently, continuously, constantly. For your inner conversation is the Word of God in action, and it cannot return void. Remember this, your world is your inner conversation pushed out. Therefore, guard your inner conversation for these 3 days as though your life depends upon it, because it does. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue with your old inner conversation, creating the same results you've always created? Or will you begin today, this moment, to maintain a new inner conversation that must create a new world? The choice is yours, but the law is absolute. Your inner conversation creates your reality. Therefore, speak to yourself for 3 days as though your desires are already fulfilled, and watch your world transform. That's the message I want to leave you tonight. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. Not because it's simple, but because it's powerful. Not because it's what you expected to hear, but because it's what you needed to hear. Remember, 3 days of proper inner conversation will transform your world every single time. And isn't that worth thinking about?